EndWar is a game I feel sorry for, released to capture the untapped console RTS crowd with the implementation of common multiplayer components like a headset for the voice command system and also being simplistic enough to accommodate the restrictive controller. All in all, it was a success considering the woeful quality of prior strategy games, but when it was finally ported to the PC, you couldn't help but think, didn't the amazing World and Conflict come out last year, and it's now getting an expansion pack? Funny to think that Ubisoft published both conceptually similar games around the same time, and unfortunately it's a detriment to EndWar, having such an already good game on the shelf still. But does that make EndWar a bad game? No, not at all. It just makes it a bit more bare bones than other PC-centered games. The concept is in the near future, the three superpowers being the EF, a coalition of European nations, the Russian Federation, the dominant power in Eastern Europe, and the US, the main controller of North America, begin World War III in the goal to control the remaining natural resources. But war is different now. It's faster and electronically focused instead of mass assaults of troops to take territory. As you start the solo campaign, you choose what side you fight for as well as your unit bonuses. The campaign follows a turn-based system. You select available battles and proceed to win them to secure strategic points on the world map, okay? To win the game, you have to either secure all 3 capitals or hold 28 locations on the map. But what's the strategy like in this strategy game? Well, it's good for the most part, in its simplicity. You have a fairly limited range of units, but the game follows a rock-paper-scissors approach to engagements. Transport vehicles repel helicopters, though helicopters are good against tanks, which themselves are good against transports. Starting to get it? Infantry aren't particularly tough, but can take cover in buildings and become a big problem. Ordering units works very similar to World and Conflict in how you order them and watch them being dropped off. It's the same here, except you don't control the individual units, but instead small squads. It actually helps remove the clutter that's often in large RTSs. They all share the same health, which is broken into quarters with a regenerating shield like that of Halo. After taking a set amount of damage, you lose one of your vehicles until you're down to just one, where it becomes disabled and requires a medevac to get out of harm's way. A minor mechanic is that you can destroy the unit while it's disabled, but the AI rarely does this to you, and it only really matters in multiplayer when your units rank up and become more important and worth protecting. To win a battle, you have 2 choices, either secure the majority of uplinks or totally destroy your opponent. The latter is rather self-explanatory, while the former differs a lot. Uplinks are strategic hubs that are spread across the map, and it requires a small squad of infantry to secure them. They allow you to call an air support, recon the map, and use an EMP blast to disable units. But they require command points that you get as you go, and spend in deploying more troops. They can also be used as a forward deployment position, giving you a tactical edge. It often functions like a tug of war between you and your opponent for the more strategically beneficial uplinks, and it's rather intense with you moving enough troops around to attack and capture uplinks while also holding your ground to keep them. Throw in the limited troops you have and the specific firefights, and it can be rather riveting and intense. It's also worth mentioning that your playstyle and effectiveness will depend greatly on the faction you choose. America is small and precise, Europe is fast and light, and Russia is heavy and powerful. Oh yeah, if either you or the AI secure the majority of uplinks on the map, the losing side is allowed to call in a WMD. Yep, and the other side is allowed to launch one in response. You can just use them to destroy a ton of units or disable an uplink. It's great stuff, believe me. I personally choose Russia because you get an actual nuke. But about that cool voice command system, I can't actually say anything about it because I don't have a headset, but I've heard it's good, so there's that. Graphically, the game looks really good. There's dozens of different battlefields, each with their own terrain and structures. Units look good and the animations they perform are pretty sweet. There's a great cinematic flair, be it the Eiffel Tower in the background or surprisingly good synth music. But you've probably noticed the biggest problem with the gameplay. No free look camera. It's always fixed behind a unit. I understand this to give a more point of view to combat, but it becomes a real pain ordering around units when you're not properly able to orient the camera. There's just a serious lack of direction in the campaign too. You win a battle, you somehow conquer a bunch of territories you had nothing to do with, and vice versa for the AI. It's really just the sad fact that EndWar is inferior to Conflict in nearly every single way. That doesn't mean the game's bad or unrecommendable, it's rather the opposite. It's not as interesting or diverse as Conflict, but it is a solid strategy game and that plays well and it is ultimately satisfying, and that's good enough I say. And don't forget you can launch nukes, that's always cool.